Welcome to the Sunday edition of the Sleeper in the Bus. I'm Justin Mason, joined as always on Sundays by Jason Collette. Jason, how you doing?
It's been a weekend, man. Between labor on Friday night, Saturday morning, and the first pitch virtual forum that because I was supposed to be in Florida this week, recovering from spring training games, and that's not happening. Which is, I guess, good because my back is an absolute mess. I have like Paul Sporer back right now, and I can barely. I have to sit down or stand up, heat, ice, alternating all weekend. But other than that, I guess mostly still recovering from labor. 6 hours on Friday night into Saturday morning was just not what I was expecting. Not to mention an extremely tough room, probably the toughest of the 11 years between the mixed and the single league formats. It was brutal.
Yeah, I watched a fair amount over in the First Pitch Florida Zoom, and then I couldn't hang for 6 hours. But you guys put together a pretty good team over there. Well, you put together a pretty good team. You're rolling by yourself. Paul's rolling today or tonight in NL. So if you want to watch some NL auctioning, that'll be going on later today for NL Labor. But joining us is a fantastic guest. This is a guy that I've been seeing a lot on Twitter, given his takes, and that is Chris Torres of the Torres Takes. Chris, welcome to the show.
Going on, guys. Thank you for having me. So I am dude on Twitter at Torres Takes. Been making some short videos this off season and posting them on my Twitter feed. Some of them have some useful information talking about specific players or decision-making within a draft, and other videos have just been ridiculous and having fun. So it seems like people are enjoying them. So I'll continue making them. So hopefully you can check it out. But I'm just super happy to be here. You know, I honestly think this was the first podcast that I ever listened to like 8 years ago. I was listening to this podcast when you guys had like that funky psychedelic music that honestly I think you should bring back, because I like the current one just because you've had it for a while, but we need like some upbeat right now. You know, the other one's like the one we have now is a little ominous sounding, so I miss that funky one. But I was even listening. Remember when Spore he was talking about like LaTroy Hawkins and Tim Fedorovich, and that was part of the intro.
Oh,
you guys
God.
Remember that?
I don't remember that. That's
we're talking like 2014. So I consider myself a Sleeper in the Bus OG. So this is very exciting for me to be on the show. So thank you so much for having me.
Hey, if any listeners have musical talents and want to send in some intros, please feel free to run something by us.
Yeah, run it by Paul. I'm not. That's above my pay grade.
Yeah. Vote him 2-1. Yeah, it's a majority rule. So we just outvote him. That one sounds good. So anything that's biased towards Justin and Jason, you're going to get our vote.
There you go. Right? Just you got to suck up a little bit. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. I love the videos you're doing. Love the state of the baseball one, fantasy baseball one you did the other day. But I always love kind of your take on certain things, because I think you have a different way of looking at things than maybe sometimes the industry does. So keep rolling those out, man. And somebody hire this man. Someone pay him some money to do these videos on the daily, because I could use them every day. So we're gonna talk about some of the ADP from TGFBI. TGFBI is rolling along. Some leagues have finished. My league is done. Some leagues are dragging ass and are only in like the 13th, 14th round. I think someone, I think Sammy Reed on Twitter was all like, "Oh, I see you put yourself in the fast league." I think people are afraid to like be slow when they're in my league, because I'm in the league. So
we've got a guy about 30 minutes away from timing out in the 21st round.
Okay, well, you're not the worst. Danielle is in the slowest league possible. I think they just entered the 14th or 15th round. So, So, and she's part of the problem. She'll say she's not, but she's probably the problem. So what we're gonna do is I got some mins and some maxes that have pretty big gaps. And shout out to, I think his name is John Anderson on
he's
Twitter.
in my league.
Oh, is he? Because he has been tweeting out some of these huge discrepancies, which is where I got this idea from. And especially fun because I'm in a league that's had some of these huge discrepancies. So it'll be interesting to talk about. But before we do that, we got a little bit of news. Max Muncy says he's close to swinging a bat. So, Chris, does this make you interested in drafting Max Muncy?
That makes me less interested. I mean, if we're not even at swinging a bat yet, I'm totally out. I don't like taking players who have had any injury that's prevented them from having a normal offseason. I bump those players down. So, given the recent news, I'm not feeling great about Muncy. And something else that I ask myself when I'm debating on a player is whether or not this player can beat me. Like if everything breaks right, is this player going to be showing up on a large percentage of winning teams at the end of the year? And when I apply that to Muncy, I mean, the answer is probably not. Like he's a good player, but I mean, he's not providing speed. The batting average is not elite or anything. He's going to get you some good power and counting stats, but I don't think he's someone that could beat me, even if he comes back and is healthier than we think he's going to be.
That's a really interesting and good way of looking at it, too. I like that. I tend to agree with you. I'm a big Max Muncy guy, but if he's now just starting to swing a bat or hasn't even started to swing a bat, the chances that he was going to be ready by the original opening day and possibly the new opening day, whenever that is kind of slim. And that just because he's like almost ready to swing a bat doesn't mean like that UCL is not going to fully pop at some point once he does. So as much as I love Muncy, I'm fading him. Jason, are you fading Max Muncy?
He's honestly on my do not draft list. He has been there all season. Just really concerned that a throw, a swing, a something could pop and we're done. And while we're talking about this, about the hey, just picking up a bat, even with Muncy, because it's not on the sheet, but it's worth mentioning because I didn't listen to Friday's episode yet if you talked about it. But Anthony Rendon says he believes he should be ready by the time the lockout ends. So that's like kind of new news about him because I know people have been pushing him up a little bit. But the thing, his exact words were, I feel like I'll be ready by the time the lockout ends. So like if we were in camp, everybody was there, like we had games this weekend, he would not be in them. He would not have been in them. And so that would be concerning and be pushing his value down in the other direction. I think we saw it last night in in the mixed labor auction where he went for $8 because his price, I'm looking at my TGFBI league and he went pick 89. He went right in front of me. So if with this news, if this would have come out on the 28th, I doubt he's inside the top 100. So that's a bit concerning.
Yeah, I love Anthony Rendon. Another one of these guys I've loved. I mean, I can't remember which year it was. Maybe it was last year. I was taking him like in the third round, feeling really damn good about it too. But I think just like Chris just said, like, is he a guy that's going to be on a bunch of winning teams even if he's healthy? Like, what is he nowadays? A guy who's probably going to hit 280 with 30 home runs is kind of the ceiling, and I just don't know that I'm. He's probably on my do not draft list now too. I didn't even see that news. That's why it's not on the rundown. Chris, what are your thoughts on Rendon?
Yeah, same situation. Like you said, I don't think I'm not scared of not having Anthony Rendon. So just given the history of injuries too, I'm totally out on him.
All right.
Same team in my TGFBI league has both Rendon and Muncy. Round 6, round 11. So that could hurt.
It's at least it's a fab league in which they can pick someone up if these guys are both out.
Yeah,
but that's a tough way to start. Speaking of injuries, apparently Sixto Sanchez is likely going to be out until mid-season. I'm assuming you guys are probably feeling the same way in terms of not draftable, but we've been seeing him going in a bunch of draft and holds. Jason, do you think there's like Sanchez is ever gonna be able to get back to health? I mean, at this point, it's like, is he droppable in dynasty leagues?
Yeah, this is the reason why when the trade happened, when he was traded from, he's out of the Phillies organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was the label on him was fragile. People were worried about his durability, and it's played out. And now when you saw the news this offseason, he also looks like he's out of shape. And so he's talking about mid-season. So if there's a path forward for him, maybe it's time to say relief. That's your path forward and take him out of the rotation. So I'm not ready to cut him yet in Dynasty, but he wasn't anywhere on my radar for drafting this year. I just don't want to take guys that we know are going to miss a good chunk of time. I'll let somebody else take that chance on that. So let's see if we can get him in the bullpen and help him hold up, because everything that, when that trade, I forgot who he was traded for. I mean, remind me what
it's a real Moto. Yeah, it's a real Moto deal.
Yeah, so it's just like when the trade happened, I don't know a Philly fan, even at the time, it was like, man, we gave up a lot because it's worked out, and Real Muto stayed there, which certainly helps. But they paid a premium on paper, but it hasn't played out that way. It's been a very imbalanced real life baseball trade.
What about you, Chris? Are you looking to move on in a Dynasty league?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not really a Dynasty player, so probably not the best person to ask. Just from what I know, though, given, the pedigree, he's still a hold at this point. But yeah, in redraft, I'm not touching him. I didn't even understand why he was going as high as he was during the offseason. Injuries are going to find you during the season. Just don't go seeking them out. I've softened my stance a little bit on taking on injury risk players. Like if a player has had injuries in the past, but now they're healthy, I feel like I've become a little bit more open-minded about taking that type of player. But if someone is already coming in with an injury, it's just I just don't want, that player on my team.
Yeah, I'm of the thinking that, especially if we think that Sixto's future is in the bullpen, I'm totally fine moving on. I try to get value, obviously, in a trade in a Dynasty league if I can. I'd probably take 10 cents on the dollar. I never invest in relief pitching prospects, because you never know if like the dynamite reliever prospect is actually even going to get a chance at a high leverage role. Unfortunately, I would be completely out on Sixto. I'd be looking to flip him for a bat in a Dynasty league, and obviously undraftable in any format for redraft. All right, let's move on and talk about these big gaps in the min maxes in TGFBI. We're going to start with someone who is a high variance player in the batting average department. And it's usually on the low end of that variance. And that's Joey Gallo, whose min is 143 and max is 209. We got
to update it. It's now 124. Okay. Somebody has jumped up and now his min is 124. And 224 is his max. So this is real time data, folks. I feel like Steve Kornacki.
There we go.
We've got to pull up the marker right on the screen. We are now 221. We're now 124 and 224.
All right. Well, that is a huge gap for a player, and I think it's understandable considering what he offers as a profile. Now, for context, TGFBI are 15-team leagues, NFBC scoring, which means traditional 5x5, so it is average and not on base percentage, where he gets a little bump. But Chris, what are your thoughts on Joey Gallo? Are you closer to that 124 or that 224?
Honestly, he isn't someone I've considered at any point in any of my DCs. The point has been made repeatedly that you don't want to take on Gallo and his batting average in an overall contest. And I agree with that. So again, he's not someone that I've been considering. But just to play devil's advocate for a moment, if Gallo had been traded to the Yankees, say last offseason, I'm pretty sure there would have been a decent amount of hype around him because he was moving to such an improved context in that ballpark and in that lineup. So sure, the 200 or whatever it was at bats after he joined the Yankees, he wasn't good, right? But I don't think he's a different player all of a sudden. And the bottom line is that the context is as good as you could ask for. So the batting average probably is going to be a drag. It will be a drag. But is it possible that a few more homers land in that short porch and bump him up to, say, like a 230? I think that's within the range of outcomes. So all of this to say, I'm probably not drafting him, but I think there's a case on the lower end. Like if he falls in a draft, I could understand if someone takes that risk. And in like a head-to-head format where the batting average is not really, you don't have to consider that as much, I'm totally cool with taking Gallo around this spot. But one other thing, I mean, he looks really odd without his facial hair. Does he not? I mean, he's just one of those guys that like for me, if the Yankees called me tomorrow and were like, hey, we'll sign you, but you got to shave off your beard. Like, I'm not doing it because I'm like a different person. So,
come on. I mean, I feel the same way because I mean, I've got a beard. I've had this beard pretty much nonstop since I got out of the Army. But if they're offering you $1 million a season, you're not. Oh man,
nope,
I'm sorry,
can't do it. So what I'm saying is maybe Gallo lost a little bit with going to the facial hair, but I don't
know. Jason, what are your thoughts on Gallo? Are you the guy who took him at 124?
I am not, but I can tell you the roster of the person who did because I was looking at it. So this was in League 6. Where was that? 633. And Team 15 took it. And this was the roster construction because honestly, the whole conversation with Gallo comes down to how you put your roster together. Mm-hmm. So Mookie Betts, Adalberto Mondesi, George Springer, Jose Abreu, Bobby Witt Jr., Chris Taylor, Mitch Garver, Eddie Rosario, and then Gallo as his ninth hitter. I'm not sure. And then he's also taken he or she, I don't know who that's, identity is hidden because I'm just looking at Team 15. Josh Donaldson and Gavin Lux behind it. So there is certainly a high amount of risk on this. And I'm not sure, it kind of forces you into some decisions later. Now that you have Gallo, you get into that decision tree where, okay, I've taken Gallo. Now you almost have to start looking at we've talked a little bit about this, the Luis Arias, the Nick Madrigal, the Michael Brantley type of branch off that decision tree to offset what you have there. So it really depends how you put it together. I will say this, I've considered taking him at a certain spot, but at the end of the day, I couldn't click the mouse. He was in the process a couple of times, but I just haven't been able to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem because I was talking with Danielle, she was asking about Gallo and whether or not she should take him. And she's like, oh, but his average is so low. And I kind of explained, I don't tell her who to pick. That's up to her. But what I did explain was like how much he drags down your average. Mm-hmm. So if he hits 202 this year, which is definitely in the range of outcomes for a guy like Joey Gallo, the target, the 80th percentile target in TGFBI for a batting average is 262. So that means you have to have a player who plays as much as Joey Gallo that hits 322, which you're just not going to find if you don't already have that on your roster. And I mean, is anybody comfortable predicting anybody hitting 322 this year? I mean, even Wander Franco, like I'm not comfortable projecting that. So it means you need probably two guys who are going to hit 290 just to offset Joey Gallo's 202. And that is just, you have to have that already set up. So therefore, if I have that already set up on a team and I'm getting to the point in the draft, if I've got two guys who I can comfortably project at 290 and then haven't already been offset by someone else, and I need power late in the draft, I might entertain that. But I don't think people realize how much, 500 plate appearances of a, 200 or 210 batting average really weighs you down.
So this is me laughing because I've done too many damn drafts this winter. I have taken Joey Gallo. I took him in the AFL Writers League. Took him at the end, towards the end of the 12th round. But in that later on in that same draft, I did take Michael Brantley. I did take Luis Arias. So I took two guys to offset the batting average to help there. But I did take Gallo at that point because in that particular build, I had gone, Jose Ramirez, Yordan Alvarez, Tyler O'Neill, Jazz Chisholm, Dalton Varsho, Josh Bell, and Avisail Garcia to that point. And I was looking for one more power bat, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. And so I went ahead and did that, but I felt better about it getting Brantley and Arias later to help pull that up. But that's the kind of decision you're forced into when you make that move where it is. Like I said, I completely forgot, but there he is sitting there at the end of the 12th, and I did take him.
Yeah, I just want to add, like, I think a couple episodes ago, Justin, you were talking about this idea of, and I know Phil DeSol has talked about this as well, of keeping your options open. And I think a player like Gallo, like you said, Jace, it forces you into decisions, which is exactly what I don't want to be doing during a draft. So, for that reason, he's just not someone in like a 15-team format I'm just not touching.
Yeah, I've drafted him twice this year. One was in the AFL League, which was like back in October, and it's a standalone, so I can like punt batting average if I need to. And the other one was in an NFBC 50, which is a 12-team league. I think he's a little bit more palatable in a 12-team league just because he can sit on your bench quite a bit if the average is hurting you. Like, you've got a lot of other options that you might not have in a 15-team league. That being said, it's still difficult. It's so difficult to roster a guy who might be hitting, 100, 197 or something like that. I do like him a lot better in on-base percentage leagues. Obviously, he walks, and so that definitely helps kind of make up the gap a little bit. But in your traditional roto leagues, it's such a hard puzzle piece to kind of fit into the puzzle that I'm likely not going to have him on any more teams.
Hypothetical, what if, and this played nothing into my decision when I took him over there, but hypothetically, what if baseball came out and unilaterally put conditions on the shifts, as they've often discussed, and said you cannot flood the right side of the infield, or you can't put 6 guys, and they put some conditions? How much would that factor in? So, I guess talking to our keeper league drafters, let's say Gallo's available this year in your keeper league, and that probability is on the table for this coming off season. They're not going to do it. I can't imagine they're going to do it right now with everything else, but who knows?
You right? Sure? I mean, they did change the ball like mid-season without notice.
That's
and
true.
Instead of sticky stuff ban,
right.
2 months
so
into
since we're talking about hypotheticals, then let's say that. Let's say they come out and said part of the deal in working this out is we're putting this shift thing into play, and this is how it's going to work. How much does that change your valuation of Joey Gallo if teams cannot extremely overshift him the way they currently do?
Oh, for me, I mean, it changes things. There's just a lot of players whose value changes in that scenario. I don't think it's very likely that I think it's almost 0% chance we see it this year, but it's something to think about. It seems like that's where things are headed in the future here. So, and if that happens, you have to change his value, I think.
Yeah, it would definitely change his value. How much? I have no idea, and this is why I rely on smarter people in the industry to do that kind of research for me. And I'm sure somebody will, or probably already has done the research, or would do the research very quickly if they came out with that. That I have no idea how much. Like, I don't know if that would bump him up 2 rounds for me, or it would definitely make me much more likely to draft him in a standalone league where I am looking at putting batting average up, because I think the variance on his batting average would become even greater, and I think the upside would become greater in terms of, hey, maybe he can hit 240 now, which would make, him a lot more palatable hitting 240 than if he's hitting 210. All right, let's move it along and talk about the next guy. That's Michael Conforto, who is currently homeless. Has not signed. He's not actually homeless, but he has not signed with a team yet. Min is 171. Max is 222. Chris, what are your thoughts on Michael Conforto?
Yeah, I think he's fine where he's going. We obviously don't know where he's going to end up. So, if he ends up, I've heard Colorado as a rumor. Obviously, if he ends up there, his price is going to go up. He's better than he showed last year. He had some injuries, and all around, he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player, and I don't see at this point in his career, him taking a huge step forward in terms of his skills. I think he does benefit getting away from the Mets and potentially into a better home ballpark. But even still, though, there's just not a ton of upside. Obviously, no speed. And around that section of the draft, there are several players I'd rather have. Like, if I need power, I'd rather go get Jorge Soler, who gives you, I think, a considerably higher power ceiling. Or Harrison Bader going a little bit later, who I think is a good chance to go 15-15 or better. And I'd even wait a little bit and get Enrique Hernandez, who I absolutely love this year. I think he's going way too late. So just think there are other options that I'd rather have over Conforto.
I'm gonna have to request a Enrique Hernandez video then, because you're gonna have to sell me on that.
It might be coming. All right.
All right. I want to. I'm putting the request in on that. Jason, where are you at on Conforto?
When you look at it, the 2020 batting average just feels like the aberration, obviously, with him. But then he's not as bad of an average hitter as he was last year. So it's been weird when you look at the numbers, because his batting average has been anywhere from 220 to 322. So much like this ADP variance, his batting average has been all over the place. When I look at my ADP league, he went in the middle of the 13th round to the aforementioned John Anderson in mine, and then in AL Labor, he went $7, because for those who, I believe I talked about this last week, but we took the top 12 free agents by ADP and made them ineligible for nomination. But anybody else below that was, and all of them went single digits, save Saya Suzuki, who went $11. But every one of the open free agents outside of that top 12 went single digits. And if that player signs with a National League team, you can rebate that for half. So, and I think we're rounding up. So in that case, Tristan Cockcroft will be able to get $4 back in his $100 fab budget with that. For comparison, I took Tommy Pham at 5 as one of my outfielders. But not too many had multiples, but that's where the value sits. So it really depends on where he signs. Obviously, if he were to go to Colorado, that creates more playing time mess that none of us really want to worry about, but it would help his batting average to that point. So we'll see where it goes. Not somebody that I know I don't have him for a fact, but also not somebody that I've targeted. If he's there at a decent price, he's in that group, sure, I'll take him. But he's not somebody that I'm designing a build around.
Yeah, there's certain free agents that I go, I don't really care where they land. Like, wherever they land, they're going to be good, or they're going to be this, or they're going to be that. And then there's certain free agents where it's like, a park or a team context is really going to change what his value is. And I think Conforto falls in that ladder. If he was to end up in Colorado, obviously that would be amazing for him. But I'm not 100% sure. Like, I was really surprised he did not take the qualifying offer when the Mets gave it to him.
Especially heading into the uncertainty of this offseason, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like he was coming off of a big year where he's going to get this mega deal. I don't even know if he's going to get much more than a pillow deal. Anyways, maybe he just did not want to play with the Mets anymore. Maybe that was, that'd be my guess, because you would have to think his agent's going to tell him, hey, you're not going to get $19 million a year on the market anywhere else. So why not take it for 1 year, pad your bank account, and then try to, recoup your value. His combination of injury history and the uncertainty has me fading him at, current price, especially because I don't know where he goes. If he ends up in a really good situation, I might be interested, but like Chris said, like, everybody will be interested in that, right? If he ends up in Colorado, his price is going to go up. So it seems unlikely I'm going to end up with Conforto at any point this offseason. The next guy on the list is a guy that not only was my league part of the min-max, it was my pick. I set the max on Tyler Mahle at 231. The min was at 88. So, Jason, where are you at on Tyler Mahle?
Not at the min. I'll tell you that. Not at the min. Although, I don't know, maybe it's this sheet I'm looking at, but the min for him is 107 now. I mean, that shouldn't change. I don't know. I'm looking at the same Google Doc as everybody else. but it's showing the min for Molly is 107 now. For either way, I'm still not. Maybe the numbers just aren't publishing right. I don't know. It's saying 107, 158, so I'll stop looking at that. I just have concerns about Cincinnati. If they decide they're going to, remember they were one of the teams that did not make any moves prior to the lockout, didn't sign anybody. So it feels like they're rolling out with the team they have, or they're going to flip around and start moving some of these guys and moving some of the offense. So I just have concerns about what type of run support he's going to get. They've already lost Castellanos from that offense. If they decide to make other moves, if Eugenio Suarez and does not bounce back, and the shoulder injury has led to a permanency in his in his swing plane, and this is the new version of him, that's concerning. It would be awesome if Jesse Winker can stay on the field and maximize his abilities, but I'm just concerned that the uncertainty and their bullpen situation, and if they start selling the farm to further cut cost, could impact him negatively. I like Molly as a pitcher, but I'm closer to the max than I am the min in taking him.
And you are correct. The min is 107. The max is 158. I must have just inputted it wrong. Chris, where are you at on Tyler Mahle?
Can I just talk about Enrique Hernandez here?
Right ahead.
I mean, I'm just like bursting at the seams here. I love Enrique Hernandez where he's going. I mean, listen, he's leading off for the Red Sox, which we know is a fantastic lineup. And I don't want to hear, oh, it's Verdugo or it could be someone else. Like, he is the leadoff hitter. He was in that spot all year when he wasn't hurt. He gives you good contact ability. The quality of contact really improved last year, especially in the second half, and we know what he did in the postseason. So he's an everyday player hitting on top of a good lineup who's going to not hurt. I think he'll help in batting average and give you above average power. He should not be going where he is. Just had to get that out there. But Tyler Mahle, I'm kind of where Jason is. I mean, so the projections really don't like him. ATC has him for 4.33 ERA, 1.28 WHIP. Listen, I think he'll beat those projections because they're factoring in kind of when he was like a different pitcher a few years ago. But he would have to really exceed those numbers to make this a valuable pick for where he's going. Then you factor in the NLDH, his home ballpark. He also had pretty significant decline in his spin rate in the second half last year. I don't think he's going to kill you, but I don't think he's really going to help you if you're drafting him where he is right now.
Yeah, Mahle's a guy that I really liked kind of coming into draft season and as we worked our way through it, and I've had to drop him a fair amount recently. And I'm trying to bring up my ranks real quick to see exactly where I dropped him to. But I had him as a borderline top 30 starter, and I still have not dropped him. So I love this stuff. The park and the defense behind him are concerned, and I think that's one of the reasons why I need to drop him, and I will, after this episode, kind of probably drop him into the 40s. If they're going to stick with Kyle Farmer at shortstop and not move on to Jose Barrero, of course that park is not a great place for a guy who gives up, hard contact. I do like the skills a lot, but the context around him, if he gets traded, I think he could jump back up into being like a top 40 starter where I have him ranked currently, but probably needs to be outside of that considering where he's at in Cincinnati. But I still am happy. I got him, like I said, I got him in TGFBI at pick 158. He's my number 4 starter, I believe. And that's having, gone pocket aces and waited a really long time. And so I do think he's a guy like Chris said that can beat the projections that are kind of ugly on him. The question is, how much is he going to beat those projections?
Yeah. I would say the other point about the wins and the reason why I looked at it with him, we talked a little bit about this on the Baseball HQ forum yesterday with cheap wins as stats. Tyler Mahle had the second highest total of cheap wins. That's a win and a non-quality starts in the National League last year, behind only Julio Urias. So 6 of his 13 wins came in non-quality starts. Year-to-year stickiness, but if you look back and be like, wow, how did Molly win 13 games? Some luck swung his way. An example, like the opposite end of that, staying with his teammate, Luis Castillo had 6 tough luck losses where he took the loss in an outing where he had a quality start. And so that can go either way in years, but sometimes when you see a guy take a jump and wins, like, hey, where did that come from? And with Molly, he got some nice run support and it was able to get some of those cheap wins. That certainly helped him with that. In the run support, he had 5.2 runs of support in the innings in which he pitched. Wow. The Reds 5.5 as a team, but 5.5 runs of support. So if that Cincinnati offense takes a step back and let's say you're scoring 4.5, maybe that cuts that wins in 3 and he goes from 13 to 10. Every one of those wins makes a difference in the standings and the auction values, all of that. So it's just something to consider.
Yeah, I just quickly dropped him. I had him at 30 prior to this episode, and I have dropped him down to 38 in my ranks. I can't seem to drop him much lower than that because the guys I've got lower than that are all like major injury risk guys. The one thing I feel pretty comfortable with is that he's going to be pitching. Whereas guys like Carlos Rodon and Pablo Lopez and Charlie Morton, as much as I like those guys a lot, I like their skills, I worry about the health. Mm-hmm. Morton should jump up once we see him on the mound, but I need to see him on the mound before that. All right. And I appreciate the Torres take. I'm going to re-examine my outfielder and second base ranks on Enrique Hernandez. So,
you're getting him as like a middle infielder. That's the other thing. Like the guy has multi-position eligibility. Like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. He should be going higher.
I had him super high early in the offseason, and then I just dropped him, and now I've probably got him too low. So I definitely got to go re-examine that one. One that I'm really interested to get your take there, Chris, is Logan Gilbert, who has got a wide range of his min and max. 137 is the min, 193 is the max. Some people really, really excited for Logan Gilbert's second year in the majors. Some people aren't ready to kind of anoint him as the next big starter. Where are you at on Logan Gilbert?
So he had a 1.17 whip last year, which is pretty damn good. ATC is projecting him to be 1.18, which again, for this point in the draft is pretty solid. So I'm totally cool taking him here just based on that. He's got the prospect pedigree. He's got the home ballpark, an elite bullpen behind him. He's not someone who's a must-have for me. I did take him in 1 DC because he fell a little bit. So I'm not taking him at that min pick. But I'm okay taking him kind of in the middle there, or definitely if he falls beyond 160, 170, I'm cool with taking him as my SP4.
All right, Jason, where are you at on Logan Gilbert?
I like him quite a bit. And so last night, Friday night with AL Labor, I ended up rostering Gilbert for $14. And so that's that's AL only. And this was about 6 nominations after I decided not to get into a bidding war with Sean Childs and Greg Ambrosius for Tristan McKenzie. I look at McKenzie and Gilbert as one and the same. And I've talked often how I like to look at buckets of players. I mean, those are 2. I would like to have one of those. It was the plan going into Labor. And then I got into that odd number swim lane. And I, for some reason, decided, you know what? And I value them both the same. I just like, if I say 11, they're going to go 12. It's going to cost 13. Maybe I can get Gilbert cheaper. Well, apparently other people were looking at Gilbert as well because I had to go 14 to get Gilbert with that. But I really like the stuff between the 2 of them. I like the opportunity in Seattle better for the conditions overall with the better bullpen and should be a better team with that aspect of them. So I do like Gilbert quite a bit. So in this case, I would be closer to the min than the max on Gilbert. With that. And I've got Gilbert in probably 3 leagues now. But like I said, I paid up for him. I knew I was going to have to pay in the teens, but I went the extra $1 because that was my bucket of guys. And I made a mistake not trying to settle that decision with McKenzie first. It wasn't like I was targeting Gilbert. It was, these are the two guys that I like. These are the prices, and go from there.
What I really like about Logan Gilbert is that he hit kind of a rookie wall and then rebounded, right? Like the league changed on him, started to approach him a little bit differently, just absolutely crushed him to the tune of a 9.70 ERA in the month of August. But then in September, he made changes, changed up the pitch mix a little bit, and it was really, really good to the tune of a 2.70 ERA. So, I mean, he cut 7 earned runs off his ERA from August to September. I love a guy who runs into adversity and then figures it out, especially that quickly. It's a great park to pitch in. I've got him inside of my top 50 starting pitchers. I might actually even move him up a little bit more because he is a whip asset, like Chris mentioned. So Gilbert's a guy that I think I think I'm probably going to be closer to that min than I am that max. I also think that he's one of those guys that if people start seeing him in spring just looking really, really good, that could jump quite a bit. But we'll see. There's always other guys that will jump too. So maybe he doesn't jump too much.
How good is that Seattle team going to be in a couple years? I mean, with the guys they got coming out,
it's
going to be scary good.
Those poor Seattle Mariner fans who have been dealing with mediocrity for so long and got so close to a World Series many years ago with that amazing, what was it, 2001 team, I think it was. They've been suffering through some pretty bad Mariner teams, but man, I don't know if there's a brighter future in the majors than that Seattle team. It's really, really interesting.
And I would say this, like, last year was almost like the year too early thing for them. Like, they got ridiculously amazing in the late and close games. So I would say, like, I'm expecting a little bit of a step back before they take a big step forward here. So I forget. I'm just throwing the numbers off the top of my head. I believe they finished like 85 or 86 wins. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But like, take away, 4 to 5 wins. But then next year, like, I expect them to be living in the 90+ range the following like three seasons.
They went 90 and 72 last year.
They're already 90. So all right, so let's take that back to 85. But then they're going to be living in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
And kudos to their front office for not like selling big pieces of their farm to try to make a push last year.
They have the #1 farm system in baseball by Baseball America. It took the Rays promoting everything they have to do that, but still, they still have the #1 farm system in baseball, and good for them.
Julio Rodriguez
traded away.
Julio Rodriguez coming this year, and Noviel Martinez or Marte,
Matt Brash,
Like, these are some. Marte's a really, really fun guy for fantasy. Just wait, if you have any chance of acquiring him in a dynasty league or keeper league, do that, because I think he's going to be a really, really good, fun fantasy player. So, all right, let's move on to Hunter Renfro, who was Enrique Hernandez's teammate last season. Now he is in Milwaukee after being traded. Jason, where are you at on Hunter Renfro coming off of a huge season?
I like Renfro quite a bit, and I'll tell you, I nearly pulled the trigger on him in the 13th round in my TGFBI. He went to pick after me. So at the turn there, I took Mitch Garver and Saya Suzuki, but nearly pulled the trigger on Renfro instead of Garver. Decided I was going to wait on catchers, but at the end of the day, looking at where catchers were going, I wanted to get on the Garver bounce back with that. So I was that close to him. I love as much. I'm happy that Renfro is no longer playing for the Red Sox, so he doesn't murder the Rays like he did last year. I mean, he just absolutely, it was a reckoning tour. He just absolutely murdered them. Then again, they're not away from him because the NL Central and the AL East match up in interleague play this year, so they will have to see him again with that. And the move to Milwaukee certainly helps because the ballpark situation. So that's a nice fit. We saw what Avisail Garcia was able to do in Milwaukee. That's the spot that Renfro is taking over with that. And so he should enjoy similar numbers. Not to mention, he's going to get to play against a very, very bad Pittsburgh team. He's going to get the Cubs and whatever they are. He's going to have the Reds that we talked about maybe shuffling things around. So good ballparks, good offset, unbalanced schedule, all on his benefit. I expect a nice season from him. It was a really surprising trade when the team made it, but they needed, the Red Sox wanted Bradley Jr.'s defense back in the play. I was, again, really surprised they made it, but really glad he's out of the AL East. And honestly, this is a better situation for him, and he'll be able to slot right there and likely hit behind Adames. I forget exactly where they have him, but he's going to be in a nice run production spot in a great ballpark, really good conditions, somebody that I wouldn't mind having on more teams.
Chris, where are you at on Hunter Renfro?
So I love Renfro almost as much as my children at this price. I mean, I'm all in. So he made significant gains in his contact percentage last season, while not really sacrificing any power. And listen, last year was the first time that he really was a full-time player. So I think this is a situation where, he just took a step forward in his development rather than this just being, a one-year fluke. He's still, like Jason was saying, he's going to be in a good ballpark against some really wretched pitching in the NL Central. And I think he'll also be in a better lineup slot this year than he was last year. I mean, with the Red Sox, he was more in like the 6 to 7 range, sometimes to move up a little bit. But, I think he's probably more likely to be at 4 or 5 spot with the Brewers. And if you plug his projection into an Excel spreadsheet, it shows, or like I use RotoChamp draft software, and it shows him as a value based on where he's going, just based on his projection. And I think, there's upside for more than that. So, yeah, absolutely love him this year. He's a great route runner, and he's got no competition for targets either. So, I mean, I'm all in.
For those that don't know, there's a wide receiver on the Raiders named Hunter Renfro, spelled with a W. So that was a good joke. I like that.
I'm picturing listeners going, targets?
Yeah.
What?
So
what? What's he trying to?
That's the point. Throw people off. Make sure they're paying attention.
I was a little taken aback first, and then I got it. This is what I get for being up until 4 o'clock in the morning doing work. But Renfro made real gains against right-handed pitching, which has kind of been one of his weak spot, and the reason why he hasn't had full-time playing time. But he hit 250 against righties last season. And it wasn't like something where it was like really like BABIP fueled. I think he had like a 275 BABIP against righties. So it's not like he was getting super lucky. If he can keep those gains, he could have a monster season, but he needs to keep those gains because the NL Central is really, really right-handed. There are only 4 currently as it stands right now by roster research. There are only 4 projected lefties on his opponents in that division. And so he does need to keep those gains. I think he can. I think what he showed last year is legitimate. I think that makes him a value where he's going, especially considering with his defense, even if he does struggle a little bit, he's probably going to still be out there pretty close to every day. And right now, roster resource has him projected to hit cleanup in that Milwaukee lineup, which is still pretty strong on the top end of it. So, but for those of you who are looking at platoon bats in the NL Central, you want the strong side. Strong side platoon guys are going to play a lot. So Rowdy Tellez, if there's only 4 pitchers in the NL Central that are left-handed, he's going to play quite a bit. But as far as Renfro goes, I'm in on the price. I need to bump him up and probably take him a little bit more than I have so far.
Yeah, and let's get Rowdy. I mean, I love him this year too.
Yeah, I didn't realize until I just looked it up right now as you guys were talking how few lefties are projected to be in that NL Central. So that's going to make a huge difference for guys who are strong side, and on the bad side for guys who are weak side platoons.
Yeah.
Moving right along, Ryan Mountcastle. This was another max in my league. He went at 177, just sat out there for a long time. His min is 85. Obviously, my league was very, very afraid of the park change in Baltimore for him. Jason, what are your thoughts on Ryan Mountcastle?
Yeah, my league wasn't. We weren't there. He was in the middle. He went 115 in mine. with that. And if Derek Carty presented at this Baseball HQ virtual forum, and he's mentioned the same thing on Twitter. But if you go back and look, like he's basically forecasting a 4 home run drop for Mountcastle. But he also makes the point on how the people may say, "Oh, 4 home runs, no big deal." That also comes into runs scored. That also impacts runs driven in. So there's a trickle down impact of that. With that. And so it's definitely a factor to be considered. I mean, he's got dual eligibility before the park change. There's no doubt people were more excited about him than after the park change. Some folks are just writing it off saying, no big deal. It is what it is. I would like to see a Venn diagram of the people saying, I still like Ryan Mountcastle a lot, despite the park. And then now people are like, oh, I really love John Means. I want to see what that Venn diagram looks like, because I kind of hear the same thing out of both sides. It's like, if you love the pitcher so much because that's going to happen, then how are you saying the hitter is going to be the same with that? So he's not. I haven't had him on any particular squad, but the argument's there for him to be a very good producer because he's going to play in volume. Yeah, the park's going to have an impact, but he's going to have a lot of volume. That said, I don't see any value in his price for the most part. At least the ones I've been in. He's been going right. He's been almost going chalk in every one of them. And then looking I keep saying last night, but looking back at where he was, his AL only price was $20. And then in the I was trying to see what he went for in the mixed one. But he went 20 in that one. And then last night in the mixed one, Mountcastle went 7 to Ariel Cohen. So that's where mixed value price is. Maybe the 20. I don't recall exactly where Mountcastle came up in the AL auction, but 20 feels really high for me. I know I was out on that. I think I just did some cursory bids to push some stuff up, but 20 is not a good price for me. But 7 in a 15-team mix feels really good.
Yeah, I'm looking up where he went in the AL auction, but I'll let Chris give his thoughts while I do that.
Yeah, as Randy Jackson of American Idol would say, that's a no for me, dog. His underlying skills are really, I'm just pulling them up now. They're nothing special. He's got a 41.5% O swing. Contact percentage is 70%. Swinging strike percentage of 16.2. I'm just not seeing. Yeah, he's going to give you some power. I don't think he's going to kill you with batting average. But at that point in the draft, I'm not really sure why people are taking him there. Why are we taking him ahead of, like, say, a Rhys Hoskins or a Joey Votto? Even with like you were saying, with the park change too. I just don't see a reason why those guys are going after Mountcastle.
I took Hoskins 7 picks later. So I took Hoskins at lead off the 9th round, where Mountcastle went 6 picks in front of me. So that's where, and by the way, Mountcastle was the 24th player nominated in AL. I don't know where he was last night, but 24th.
You went $20 in AL labor.
Mm-hmm.
Mountcastle's probably the guy I've had the biggest shift in terms of where I have ranked this year, because coming into draft season, or prior to draft season, I guess, I was really high on Mountcastle. I think Mountcastle is one of those guys that kind of beats his underlying numbers. He's hit pretty much at every level, and he's done that in the majors too so far, in spite of the fact having kind of lackluster StatCast data and approach metrics. So that being said, I think he is hurt a lot by that park change. I think he's probably hurt more than any other guy. And 4 home runs, I think that's probably the bare minimum of what we see in terms of him losing power to left field. Love that he's outfield and infield eligible. I love those guys who can go from first corner to the outfield on your team. But like I said, I was in that league where he went, I think, 177, and I didn't take him. And so I'm probably now on the lower end of that kind of ADP at this point, just because of the park change and the team context around him. Like, that Orioles team probably is not going to be very good to help offset maybe some drop in power. So next guy on the list does not have any issues with power. He has a little bit of issues of staying on the field, and I think a little bit might be underselling it, and that's Giancarlo Stanton. When he's on the field, he is absolutely fantastic, could lead the majors in home runs, but he's had a hard time staying on the field. His min is 56, his max is 114. Chris, where are you at on Giancarlo Stanton?
I hate to be so negative here, but I mean, he's another one I'm just not even considering. Why am I going to take at best, a 3.5 category player at this point of the draft? I think people are still kind of dreaming on 2017 when he had almost 60 home runs. I don't think it's likely we see that again, especially as now he's getting older and we know that health has been an issue. I'll take, I think I brought him up before, Jorge Soler. I'll take Renfro much later. I'd even rather take Gallo at his price than Stanton. So yeah, I'm out on him.
Jason, where are you at on Stanton?
Have him in one league. Took him at 105. I took him out of the last pick of the 7th round in a draft champions format, and the only other hitters, that's the one I opened up with pocket aces, and then had Lindor, Brandon Lau, and Nolan Arenado in front of him. So I was looking for another big power source, and that's where I went with that. So I had him last year. He was like the power anchor of my AL labor team. That did not work out well. And it's not like I hate him, but as Chris said, that 58 home run season was awesome. And we know what he's capable of if he can stay on the field, but how many times every year it's something. And even though the guy's got, he takes incredibly good care of himself. It's just, he can't pull fat. But when you're muscular as him, that gets pulled. And every time it's something, it's an oblique, and okay, there it goes 4 weeks right there. It just gets annoying after a while, and at that point, you're like mitigating risk. Like I said, I wouldn't mind him at the price. There's no way I'm up in that min range though. No, but he was sitting there at 105. It was like at that point, if he's outside of the top 100, it's just too good to ignore. I'm willing to take that chance there.
Yeah, I've got him as my number 25 outfielder right now, which would be outside of the top 100. And I've got multiple guys going outside the top 100 above him. It seems really unlikely I'm going to get him. What Chris said kind of nailed it. You've got a guy who is likely at best a 4-category producer, and more likely he's more of a 3-category producer.
Yeah.
With injury risk, like the combination of not being able to give me stolen bases, unsure about where his batting average is going to be, and then injury risk on top of it. Nah, I don't. He's not going to fit into the build of very many of my teams unless it's really, really like he's dropped probably outside the top 130, 140, maybe even 150, and I just don't see that happening.
You too, dog?
That is enough for me too, dog.
All right.
So moving right along, we have let's see, it was Taylor Rogers. So the min on this one is 86, the max is 208. The guy who picked him at his min said he really liked him, but he actually made a mistake taking him as early as he did. That was Steve Paulo of the Stomper Projections. So, we'll give a little, caveat there to that min, but still has been going kind of in a wide range in drafts so far in TGFBI. Jason, where are you at on Taylor Rogers?
And I say this as the guy who's been touting and tooting to Jorge Alcalahorn all winter. It's not because I hate Taylor Rogers. It's just, there was talks last year at the trade deadline that he may be moved. And so we don't know if that's still a situation that could happen, because if you look at the skills, awesome strikeout rate, really low walk rate. I know smart players like Matt Modica said he loves the guy. He would love to have him as his closer. He said it. And all these skills look great. High ground ball rate, every part of that. But then you remember that he was 3rd on his club in saves last year. Alex Conway led that team in saves before he was traded. And then Hansel Robles had 10. Then it was Rogers with 9. And Duffy had 3. Alcala 1. And then Garza and Dobnak just picked up some 3-inning saves type of situations. But they had multiple guys there. So it wasn't like they were completely sold on him last year as well. And even prior to that, I know one season he had 30 saves but other times he didn't have that. So that's the only thing against him is that his club doesn't feel fully bought in on him, and that he may be traded. Other than that, he would be an awesome reliever to have, because the skills are just they jump off the paper at you. But there's a reason why I've been targeting Ocala, and it's because of that.
Where are you at on Taylor Rogers there, Chris?
So I like him quite a bit, actually. I mean, just looking at the skills, I'm pulling up the baseball forecaster here for Baseball HQ. They had him at an expected whip of 0.93. His actual whip was 1.14. So I think we could expect a little regression there. But also, even way more important is that his velocity jumped up 1.2 miles per hour from 2020, from 94.6 to 95.8. I mean, he really showed some elite skills. So given how crazy people have gotten with closers, I'm certainly willing to take a risk on Rogers. My, I guess, baseline for him is that he gets like 60% of Minnesota's saves, which with those elite ratios, I think is more than worth it at his current price. And like I said before, I use RotoChamp draft software. So I like it because you could put in, you just plug in the projection and, it gives you a dollar value based on that, kind of like the auction calculator on Fangraphs. And Taylor Rogers' projection, he's like the one closer that actually shows us a positive value based on where he's going. I think he's ranked like a $10 player, where everybody else is, according to that valuation, being way overdrafted. So I'm totally fine with Taylor Rogers as my second closer. Again, I just think the skills are so elite that it makes it worth it.
I love Taylor Rogers as a pitcher, and I see exactly what Chris is talking about in terms of the skills being fantastic. The problem is they would have traded him last year had he not gotten hurt right before the trade deadline. And
this is his walk year, by the way. This is his final year of contract before he's a free agent. So if they are going to do something, now
at best, he's going to be traded midseason. At worst, he's traded to a non-closing situation prior to the start of the season because of lefty bias. That being said, I'm totally fine taking Taylor Rogers, but I would highly recommend handcuffing Ocala to him. But the problem is in Minnesota is it could be Tyler Duffy. They're a team that has shown they're not necessarily guaranteed to stick with one guy. They may spread the saves around. So
remember where Gabe Kapler. Remember Rocco Baldelli. Remember what coaching tree and organization he's out of.
Yep, exactly, out of that Tampa Bay coaching tree. So as much as I like Rogers, it seems unlikely I'm going to end up with him anymore because I'm done with all my DCs for the draft season, and I can't roster the entire Minnesota bullpen in a fab league. So
I just want to make one more quick point. I'm sorry.
Please do.
So back in 2019, and Rocco Baldelli was the manager back then, Taylor Rogers had 30 saves. So it's not like we've never seen him, we're not just speculating. We've never seen him actually get a majority of the closer's role before. So, if he's pitching that well, if those skill gains carry over to this year, I think Minnesota's kind of going to be forced to, he's going to be their guy at the end of games. So if he's given us 30 before, why can't he give us, 15 to 20? And again, I think at that spot, that would be pretty valuable.
Yeah, I actually think you've got a really good point there. I'm trying to look at who is on that.
I have it right here. Remember, Blake Parker saved 10 for that club too. Sergio Romo 3, Trevor May 2, and then Ryan Harper, Randy Dobnak, Mike Murray, Trevor Hildenberger, Devin Smeltzer also had saves. So they had 9 guys with at least one save that year, but we had 2 with double digits, which is a rarity these days with that. I believe that was a season Parker started out. I forget exactly how that thing went, but he was the guy out of the gate, and Rogers was the dirt cheap guy. And then he was able to pick up he became the guy to get the saves. I'm trying to look at the logs. No, I take that back. It's all showing 2021 logs. I'm sorry. Let me jump to 2019. Showing the save logs. Yeah, Parker was getting his saves early in the season, and then Parker was done with saves by mid-June, towards the end of June, Father's Day. That was the last time he got a save.
Pretty sure he got sent out of the minors. He was so bad at one point. Yeah, I think Chris is turning me around a little bit on Taylor Rogers. I still think my main concern though is that he gets traded.
No, I agree.
He's not Kimbrel traded flight risk. I mean, that's a good thing for Kimbrel, but that's definitely something you got to put into play. It would be unlikely Minnesota is going to give him a qualifying offer because Lord knows a closer would love to take a qualifying offer. I mean, look where the White Sox are. It's like everybody thinks they're going to trade Kimbrel because he took the offer.
It sounds like the new CBA won't have those though, right? Because there's no draft pick compensation attached to players. So I don't know if the qualifying offer will even be a thing. Heading into
it just locks things down, but it's it's at the same point. This is the time. It would have been good to trade him, but like you said, he got hurt mid-year a little bit, so you can't do it then. But now's the best time to do it because in season they're gonna you get somebody who's off the 40-man roster. It all depends. The Cubs got a good price. Were able to get Cody Hoyer and Nick Madrigal for Craig Kimbrel. That worked out. That would be the ideal type of return because both those guys will be factors on the 26-man roster this year for the Cubs. That's what the Twins would be hoping for. But again, the Twins are also hoping to contend in the AL Central this year and are not looking to sell at the deadline. So if you can trade Rogers now and then try to build and maybe bring somebody else in that's more than a one-year solution, along with what you already have, then they've got some options together. Because offensively, you can't just write that club off and be like, because if that offense plays to its capabilities, it's a contender, and what they have on paper could be a contender as well.
That rotation's a little bit of a mess, though.
Well, that's what they got. That's what they got to bring in. So if nobody's going to trade a starter for a closer, but maybe they go out and sign somebody to that capacity, or they're aggressive with Bolosevic and bringing him up and seeing what happens. It'll be curious to see where they go.
I think if you draft Rogers, what you should do is put Alcala on your bench or reserve list just for until the season starts. Because you'll know pretty quick who the guy is, right? If Rogers goes out and gets the first two saves, he's obviously the guy. If they spread it around the first two opportunities, it may be a little bit more of a committee. But at least you've got the backup if they trade Rogers before the start of the season and have the guy kind of the next man up. And you can always drop Alcala once you know that Rogers is safe in the guy. So I would highly recommend handcuffing the next man up, which I think Jason and I at least are in agreement. It's probably Alcala.
Well, but I'll tell you this. I don't know if you can wait to the reserves. It may be one of these situations where you take him in one of your last couple of picks, and so you're using two roster spots to secure. Using the 2019, you're taking Blake Parker and Taylor Rogers to get the 40 saves from that. But you may have to do that because I continue to see Alcala's value go up. I mean, he went $3 in AL Labor is the price he went, and that was my max bid. But Rick and Glenn beat me to him, but they also had more money than me, so it wouldn't have mattered. But Alcala did not even go in the reserves last night of mixed labor, so there's a chance you may not have to. But I've seen his price kind of go all over the place. And I know in TGFBI, he's already gone in some leagues. When we look at where his price is, he's $396 and $412. He's only gone in 2 leagues. So he's still sitting out from doing my math. I can't do math. I was told there would be no math. But 23 times 15 is 370. Is the why am I should know this number by heart. It always drives me nuts. 345. So he has gone. He has not gone in the active phase. So, yay, you can pass that off.
Yeah, I think he went in the 25th or 26th round in my league, and I was sniped. Oh, no, it was the 27th round because I remember yelling at Shelly for sniping me in the 27th round of TGFBI on Alcala. So, all right, let's move on to another closing prospect. That's David Bednar, who is projected by a lot of people right now to be the closer in Pittsburgh to start the year. We love the skills. His min pick is 133. His max pick is 218. Chris, where are you at on David Bednar?
Did Chris Stratton get traded or go to
No,
another team?
This is what
you're speaking Justin's language right there.
Thank you. Yeah.
You kind of you went right over his head and you started talking about targets, but you say Chris Stratton, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bednar, I think people are projecting him to be, they want to see him in the everyday role, and he is a good pitcher. I mean, the skills are really good. But Chris Stratton is there, and we saw that they were willing to split the role between him and Bednar at the end of last year. So the Pirates are such a putrid team, though. I mean, do you really want a part-time closer on the Pirates, even if they're giving you really good ratios? I don't think it's crazy to take him here, but personally, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I think this is the disconnect sometimes between fantasy and real life baseball, in the fact that we often look for the best skills in a bullpen. And I understand people wanting to draft skills, not roles, but when it comes to closers, major league teams don't often go with the most skilled guy as their closer, especially when there's, things like arbitration values for them to consider later on. And they're going to go with a kind of, low-end cost-controlled guy like Chris Stratton. And I mean, I think the most important thing is look at the usage. Like you said, Chris Stratton was the guy getting the saves down the stretch last year.
And he wasn't bad. So
no, he's fine.
Yeah.
Former ace Chris Stratton. For those who don't know, I thought Chris Stratton was actually going to be a thing as a starter at one point. But yeah, Chris Stratton is one of my most rostered players this year in DCs because he's going extremely cheap, and everybody's treating David Bednar like he's the closer when I don't think he is. Jason, where are you at on David Bednar?
I think it comes down with Bednar's stuff. If you watch the two of them pitch, I was more impressed with Bednar's stuff. But the other piece of this equation, too, is if I'm Pittsburgh and Bednar gets out of the gate rolling and rocking, and somebody has a need, I am absolutely putting them on the block. And it's like about a fantasy league, like, oh, hey, you need a closer? I've got one. There's no reason why Pittsburgh should be keeping that type of thing. They need, and they're cheap, as they've proven time and time again. But if Bednar can do something, they have the ability to put him on the block and move him. So that's always a factor. I would put the likeness of a trade with him along the same pages as Rodgers, only because it's the smart move for Pittsburgh to do this, because they gave Stratton opportunities. They got him off DFA, I believe, unless they got him dirt on some trading a guy out of options with Pittsburgh, with San Francisco. I forget how it went, how they got the acquisition. But that's my only concern with Bednar. But from a stuff perspective, he's got it. But they gave the opportunities to Stratton last year. So on paper, I would say that Bednar is the 70-30, is the 70 of the 70-30 option. But if he gets traded, it flips. Then he's not going to get, I don't think he's going to get acquired to be a primary closer on another team. It would be here, but another team would be acquiring him for depth, not as the primary front guy, unless somebody got hurt.
Yeah, it looks like Bednar, according to Roster Resource, was acquired. He was purchased in 2019 from the Angels. So I'm assuming that's a trade for cash. Is what that was. So
yeah, that was the year he was out of options. So he went from San Francisco to the Angels, and then they must have DFA'd him, so he became a deal for cash.
I mean, ultimately, I think that Chris Stratton and Bednar probably share the role, especially initially, and that's at best for Bednar. And like Chris said, do you want a guy who's sharing save opportunities on what is likely one of the worst teams in baseball this year? I don't know. I mean,
saves are saves. Guys are going to get them. I know there's people are worried about, it's a bad team and whatnot. But at the same point, saves are saves. And even on bad, like Melanson, you can probably, the Angels, the Diamondbacks are not going to be a great club, but you can look at 25 to 27 saves there. And so even if, let's say Bednar and Stratton were in a straight 50-50 split, that's 10 to 12 saves for both guys. If you did that, if you said 50-50 and assume that the Pirates are just a little worse than what Arizona would be, maybe a lot worse, but still 10 to 12 saves. And there's still value in 10 to 12 saves because you figure they're probably going to have 2 to 3 wins, working late leverage and whatnot. So there's still value there, but the inside the top 100, as you said, I believe you said he had been picked a couple of times.
133 was his max.
133
his min.
Yeah, that's not great, but again, there's still value for a guy that's going to have double-digit. He should have double-digit saves either way. If he gets traded, if it's a split duty, I still see him with him getting double-digit saves. So very low end SP, very, very low end CL2, safer option for a CL3.
All right. We have some breaking news during the course of the podcast. There's been a trade made that includes Jason Collette making a deal in labor. The draft is not even a week old. Ian
48 hours old.
Yeah, Ian Khan has struck again and made a trade. So I want you to kind of lay out who you got, who you gave up, why you guys made this deal, and then Chris and I can roast you.
Yeah, so to talk a little bit about AL Labor, which again was a 6-hour adventure on Friday night. There was coming out of it, and we'll put a link to the trade, the results as they were coming out of the auction, so people can see that in the rundown if you haven't already seen it on Twitter. But coming out of it, my team was heavy on the offense, which was the opposite of last year, and it wasn't a reaction to that as much as how things worked out early in the auction. So, the fourth guy overall, I purchased Rafael Devers for $34. I had him valued as $33, but I am not somebody that is married to the cent of my dollar values. No. And so I got into that. And so I went the extra dollar, fine. But again, I get into a situation where I like to bucket guys. It doesn't mean I'll spend the same amount, but it's like I would love to get somebody out of this pool. Well, Rafael Devers and Vlad Jr. were 2 players I had in that pocket. Like, I want one of those guys. And so Vlad comes up as the 10th player. And understand the previous 9 guys had each gone $1 to $3 over what the values that I had down. Like the previous player, I had Cedric Mullins as the $26 player. He went for 29. Semien 25 went for 26. Rosarena 24, he went for 27. Devers already mentioned, I had him 33. I paid 34. Bichette was actually, I had him 31. He went 37. Ramirez 38.42. And so when Vlad Jr. went out, the bid started. Somebody said 28. Then because again we're doing it via the software. So 31, 32. And I just typed 40 just to keep things moving along. And everybody stopped. And I was like, well, crap, that's not what I wanted. I wanted one guy from that bucket. Now I have both guys from that bucket. And it didn't force me into, okay, I've spent $74 of my $190 hitting budget on 2 big bats. And we've talked about the need for speed, especially in a single league format, and how I really did not want to get in the Miles Straw mess. And so then it's like, let's see what the price is going to be on Mondesi. And let's find that out in short order. And so when Mondesi came back up and the 33rd pick, 33rd nomination, I had him valued at $28 and I paid $25. And so, but that forced me into the Mondesi decision that I really didn't want to do. But I didn't want to completely avoid it as well, like I did Straw. So then, okay, I've got 74, 25. So I've got $99 spent on 3 guys. And it, factored in elsewhere, and where it came into play is I knew I wasn't going to play in the top level of closers. I was going to take some other chances, but then some of those prices, because the regular closer prices went up, like Liam Hendricks was 26, Iglesias was 23. I mean, we rarely see closers going over 20 in this league, and then we saw at least 2 go up that high, and so some of the other options came up as well. And so when I came out of the draft with a focus on mid-tier pitching, getting Logan Gilbert at 14, getting Jordan Montgomery at Jordan Montgomery at 12, Nathan Eovaldi at 14, Tarek Skubal at 11. Those were the 4 guys that I had, and then I took some other options. I took Paul Sewald, Matt Brash, who I mentioned. I got auto-picked on DeMarcus Evans because at the very, very end of the thing, the time between picks was 15 seconds. And the time it took me to come over here and enter into software, get the mouse, go up there, is like done. And it flipped in. So Evans was in my reserve queue because I really wanted to take Brent Honeywell there. But I got Honeywell in the reserves anyhow. So it's a wash. It worked. So I started throwing those darts. But obviously when you spend on what you do on offense, my team was unbalanced. Very happy with where things were offensively, but in the pitching staff needed help. Conversely, Ian, right out of the gates, 6 pick, he's purchased Garrett Cole at 37. I had Cole valued at 32. Ian said he had him valued at 44. Like he was really in on pitching, and so, but that was his plan. But then Robbie Ray came up later, and he had Robbie Ray valued as a $27 player. He ended up buying him for $21 because he and Larry Schechter were going back and forth. And Ian's like, I don't want Larry to get this kind of value. And so he went and did that. He wasn't planning on purchasing all of that, but he told me, that's what I have. These were my first 2. So he's got, $58 on Cole and Ray. He's got all these strikeouts, and the ratio should be good, and then the wins, but then it impacted how he could pursue offense. And so yesterday we're on a panel at the First Pitch forums and with Steve Gardner, and we're just talking about how we feel about our teams. And we both talked about, something happened in the auction that caused us to change our plans and that we're rather unbalanced. And so, Ian and I are probably going to talk trade, and like we hang up and he's already calling me. He's like, so let's talk. And so like the first thing was, hey, what about just Vlad for Cole? And I was like, no, last year I had Cole. I missed out on the big bat, and I was chasing offense all year. And then later on he had texted me an idea last night. He goes, what if and he called me and like, hey, what if we expand this and look at trying to do a 2 for 2? And he mentioned, hey, Jordan Montgomery coming back to me and Luke Voigt coming back to you. And so when I put the numbers in, it was really scary how then it took both of our teams and made them both very balanced and put us in the projected standings like right next to each other with it's like all of a sudden it was like there's more balance in it. And the other the other big part of this that comes into play for me is the pending Fabapalooza. As I mentioned earlier, the top 12 free agents by ADP were completely off the table for us. Most of those guys were hitters. The only 2 big name pitchers that could potentially come over are Clayton Kershaw and Carlos Rodon. Both of them have red flags. We don't know what the situation is with Clayton Kershaw. Carlos Rodon coming off an amazing year. The White Sox would not even give him a qualifying offer. So there's some risk associated there. But on the hitting side, obviously we have a bunch of names in play that could potentially come over. And so that's where I was starting to look at it, saying, okay, we have all of these guys that could potentially come over, Freeman and all these different things. So if I trade this offense now, then when Fabapalooza happens, I'm likely going to have more options on the table to go pursue to get some of that hitting back. In my overall team, I still feel like I have almost a starter at every position, which is almost impossible to do in a single league format. But when I go through, second catcher, you're not going to have a starter, or your catcher is really tough. So I got Zach Collins and Eric Haas. I honestly have never paid attention how his name's Haas. Okay. So then I have Vladdy. I did get Rougned Odor for $6. More than I wanted to pay, but I've talked about him all winter. J.P. Crawford, Rafael Devers, Taylor Walls at middle infield. There's the other reserve. Mondesi, Benintendi, Joe Adell, Anthony Santander, Willie Calhoun, Tommy Pham, Yandy Diaz. So like I have enough bats. And if that also depends on Pham signing with an American League team. If not, I have to refund them. And on the bench, hitting wise, I have Brett Phillips I can call up for some speed there. And I also took a late dart on Cody Thomas with Oakland. If they are going to gut their team, Cody Thomas should get an opportunity. And lastly, I took Matt Thaiss because he's first base now, but he's supposed to be the backup catcher. And that gives me the opportunity to, if one of those other 2 catchers don't work out and Thaiss does, I can move him up. But Ian, like I said, when he came out of it, he looked at it, he goes, because he was picking up a lot of late speed when he realized, okay, I don't have the budget to buy this power, so I'm going to start taking a bunch of speed. He was picking up speed guys, and even in the reserves, he went to go grab speed guys. But a lot of his late picks, like Kevin Kiermaier, and he grabbed Margot late, and he went after Adolis Garcia. And so he started grabbing a lot of these different pieces, but he was struggling to put some power together. And so it just really balances us out. It's just so unusual to make a trade 36 hours after a draft's done. But
it's not unusual for Ian though. Like
it is for me. But this trade wouldn't have come together. It would be unlikely that this would have come together until like 2 months into a season, because nobody makes something of this caliber before a season even starts. But this helps us both undo mistakes that we made in the auction. I mean, I did not want to buy. It wasn't the price of Vlad, and it wasn't that I was price enforcing. I just looked at, I had him right at $40 value, never expecting him to go there. But if I would have typed in 38, maybe he goes 39. I don't have to worry about this, but it absolutely changed the way I did the rest of my auction build there. And Ian's doing the same thing with Robbie Ray, and Robbie Ray was the 30th pick. So, I mean, both of us 30 picks in, not even 3 trips around the room, had to completely change the way we were going to do things because of something that came up in the auction, which is what happens in auction. And Justin, I think you mentioned it earlier about, having the flexibility. You should be prepared if something happens. And, in this case, we weren't taking advantage of anything. It was just that we saw something. We're like, maybe we could do it this way. And it's not like I'm unhappy with my team, but I recognize that it's unbalanced. And for me to fix it, it's going to have to be either via the trade. It's really tough to fix pursue strikeouts, because again, in labor, you can't stream guys as much, because if you draft them, they're on your team unless they get injured or they're demoted. And this is the single league format. The mixed league it's not applicable to mixed league. They can stream these guys. We can't. So I've got to keep these guys in my active lineup unless they get hurt or demoted to the minors. I have to cut them to replace them. And so with the pitching stuff, that's where it gets really tough. I can't just say, Gilbert's got a bad matchup this week, I'm going to put in this guy. Nope, he's got to stay in and eat it. Mm-hmm. And so but if you look at the NL labor results tonight, that's why you're going to see German Marquez go for such a low number, because you got to eat those starts that he's in Coors. And he's really tough in that capacity with that. So at the end of the day, my team's now more balanced. That I've traded Vlad Jr. and Jordan Montgomery for Garrett Cole and Luke Voigt. The Yankee hater in me feels disgusting. But I traded 1 Yankee to get 2. It is what it is. But this is a more balanced team, and it puts me in a better place to start the season, to approach Fabapalooza with looking at what's likely going to be 2 free agent hitters for every free agent pitcher that comes across for us to bid on, for me to retool the team before the season actually starts.
All right. Well,
long rant. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said on that rant, but we have a few Twitter questions. I know Jason's got to get out of here in a few minutes. So I just wanted to ask if I can find the thread. Going to ask Chris.
I know one of them.
Go ahead. Which one do you know?
What inspired Torres takes?
There you go.
That was one of the questions. That's all I came up. What inspired you to do that?
So my last job, I worked at a local college here in the counseling center, and it was absurd because they would pay us to come work over the summer, even though there were like no students on campus. So in my line of work, there's really, if you're not seeing students, there's really not much you can do. So we pretty much spent the entire summer, me, my boss, and one of my coworkers, prepping for fantasy football drafts. And, I would always come out with like these hot takes like, oh, Jerick McKinnon's going to be the RB1 or whatever. So my boss, it got to a point where I'd walk in and the first thing he would say to me in the morning is, hey, you got any Torres takes? And so that was it. And I made the Twitter account and I showed it to them, and, they laughed at me. But look at me now, bitches, sleep in the bus.
You know what? I'm going to end with that right there. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. It was great to have you on. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media so they can get those Torres takes.
Yeah, just at Torres Takes on Twitter.
Definitely go in. Yeah, definitely go and follow him because those 2-minute videos are well worth your time. You should put an alert on his account, so every time he tweets, you get a Torres take. Oh, wow. Right? There you go. And I don't do that for everybody. So, Jason, what are you working on? Where can you be reached?
So I'm working on writing up my AL labor recap, which is going to include all the numbers and such behind everything that I just ran through about the actual draft itself, and then the trade, and then some overall thoughts in the league, because there were some interesting trends that were going there. If you're in an AL league, really pay attention to the outfield. It gets thin in a hurry with that. So writing that up and have I'm hosting a first pitch panel in about 20 minutes to go over in-season stuff. So I get the pleasure of moderating a panel with Jock Thompson, Rob Silver, and Dave Potts. So I guess they figured the guy who's never won all those contests can talk to the guys who have. So that'll be fun. And that's it. I think I'm moderating the tout. One of the tout drafts is this weekend. This Tuesday. There's some tout thing on Tuesday night, and I'm moderating the Zoom room. That's open to everybody. So if y'all want to come in, maybe it's head to head. I don't know. I just volunteered.
No, it's got to be mixed draft. Yeah,
mixed draft. That's Tuesday night. I'm doing that. I think it starts at 8. At least I hope it does, because I have a town education meeting until 8:00. So I'll just jump from one Zoom to the next. But if you want to come hang out in there, come hang out on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to swing in there for a little bit on that. You can reach me on Twitter at JustinMasonFWFB. Writing daily pretty much over at Fangraphs. This week is all ranks. I'm updating all of my ranks. I've already dropped first and catcher and I think second base. And then Monday will be shortstop. Tuesday will be third base. Wednesday outfield, and then Thursday I think starting pitcher. So definitely check that over there. You can hear me on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast and TGFBI podcast as well. That will wrap us up for this episode. For Chris, Jason, myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.